Hi there. After my family and I started homeschooling, not long after, I decided to plan a trip to Washington, D.C. and the surrounding area. And we went with another family, and my kids had a blast. We visited all over D.C. I ran them ragged, but we had such a great time. And it's a trip that I really want other homeschool families to be able to enjoy. So I've organized a trip from April 12th to April 18th of 2026 just for homeschool families. And we will be seeing some amazing sites. We'll go to Ford's Theater, where the Lincoln assassination took place. We'll go to the Spy Museum. We're going to see, of course, all the memorials. We will see some government buildings. Also, Mount Vernon is one of my favorite places where George Washington made his home. And the National Zoo, the Museum of the Bible, the Smithsonian, and also Arlington Cemetery. So please join me. This is one of the best things you can do as an American homeschool family. But even if you're coming from abroad, you're more than welcome. I hope to see you there.
The Sam Sorbo Show is brought to you in partnership by the Herzog Foundation.
Hi there. In a world changing at breakneck speed, where AI is reshaping everything from how we work and think to how we raise our children, there's a growing sense that we're losing something vital. Creativity, independent thought, even the ethic of hard work that once defined us as a people. And so my guests today are Jason and Casey Cashell, and they are doing something remarkable about it. I think you will appreciate this. This is the Sam Sorbo Show. Here we go.
Sam Sorbo,
Sam, welcome back to the program.
I'm glad to welcome Sam Sorbo.
It's great to have you here.
All right, so welcome to the show. My guests are Jason and Casey Cashell, and they are doing something amazing because they left the suburbs. They bought a place called Mayhurst Estate, which is a historic manor in the heart of the nation's history, and they began rebuilding it by hand, and with it, a new life for their growing family. They are learning the hard way. Massive historic renovations, homeschooling, of course, building a family business from scratch, and they've hosted over 9,000 people, which is something that I can't even say it out loud without just laughing. In the past 5 years, they're transforming Mayhurst into a one-of-a-kind hospitality hub where their business is a ministry, their family is a mission, and America's heritage is brought to life once again. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Sam. It's good to be here.
It's such a pleasure to speak to you. And I admitted before we actually started recording that I'm super jelly, as I'm sure a lot of us are. It actually gives, I think, us hope to see people doing things with their hands, and we've lost that to a large degree. I was at a place today, and her 5 key wasn't working properly, and the idea was simply throw out the keyboard. Because it's too hard to fix it. You might as well just get a new keyboard. They're so cheap. You know what I'm saying? And of course, you're hearkening back to an era where nothing was cheap. Everything was hard fought and hard won, and sort of worth the effort, right?
Mm-hmm. Very much so, yeah.
So talk to me about how this started. Did one of you have the idea and the other one said, "No way"?
No, we're both crazy. We mutually wanted the crazy together.
Yeah, it's always funny because a lot of times in marriages you have one person that's the dreamer and then one that's kind of the nuts and bolts. And with Casey and I, we're both dreamers. So it can be a little scary sometimes.
So you both had this idea. Did you have the idea before you got married? Was this sort of part of your marriage pact?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when Casey and I both got, when we got married, she was 19, I was 25. We met in college, and we really had this idea of just let's do home different. Let's do it different than what we had known. Casey grew up in a very stable home, me not so much. And neither one of us grew up homeschooled. And so homeschooling was new to us. we just really had a desire to do things different than maybe what we had seen. And so in a lot of ways, we were kind of pioneers. And so we made and continue to make lots of mistakes. But for us, it's always been about the adventure, kind of the journey together. And as we started in our little apartment, we knew that so we are intentional. When we got married, we're like, no TV. We don't want to have a TV in the house. Still don't today. And we wanted the couches to be facing each other, not all the couches facing the TV, because we really wanted the home to be a place of hospitality, a place of creativity. And so we were pretty intentional from the beginning. And then really the way Mayhurst came about, it's such an unlikely story. It's crazy. And I won't get into the string of miracles that led to it, because neither one of us had money. We don't come from money. We had really very little money when we even got this place. So the fact that we're even here is just in and of itself a whole nother story.
So the miracles are super interesting. So let's not just gloss right over them. But I want to go back, because you were 25. So you were in the workforce. You worked a 9 to 5. What was that?
Yeah. So I was an HR manager, and Casey was a nanny, and we were both in school. So we got married while we were still going through college, and so that's really how life started. Right. For us. And, it's funny because neither one of us had a construction background. We've renovated every home since, but when we first got married, I didn't know anything. I mean, virtually nothing. And this was before internet and YouTube. So this is when you had to call, the hotlines to get help over the phone to walk you through it. So this was early days. This was primitive DIY.
Yeah. I went to Home Depot to learn how to do stuff.
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
So, okay, so Mayhurst is an old estate, with a mansion and acreage, and it fell into your lap somehow.
Yes, pretty much. I wouldn't put it that way. So it was our dream to create a place like this. The journey really started 10 years before Mayhurst even happened. And we had been looking and praying and just wanting to do something like this, because again, we always saw our home as a tool. We didn't see it as a place of consumption and a place where it basically exists for us, but we saw it as a place that exists to serve and to encourage and inspire other people. And we did that through every home we had, from our 900 square foot first home to now Mayhurst, which is almost 10,000 square feet. God's just given us a bigger tool as we've strived to be faithful with the one that we had. And so that's, the story is really more about God's faithfulness than ours.
It's true.
Okay. So, so when did you acquire Mayhurst? How long have you been there? And you obviously, when you acquired it, you knew that it was going to take a lot of work.
Yes. Yeah. We bought Mayhurst 3 weeks before COVID happened. So in February 18th, 2020.
Perfect timing.
So we basically had a 10-year journey of praying for an old estate that we could use as a hospitality hub for the glory of God and the good of others. And so we had been praying this big giant prayer that was insane to so many of our other our friends over the years, but they would pray with us. And when this miracle happened, it was one of those things where it built the faith of so many, because it was just a God-sized story. And so, but as God does everything in his timing, he's sovereign and he's good, but he also does it in ways that we could never anticipate. And so he did it 3 weeks before a global quarantine, when the entire world decides to not do hospitality anymore. So we buy a hospitality hub right before all of it ends globally. And so it was definitely a historic moment that God placed us in here, in this place. He prepared miracles before we even got here to help it survive. And so there was, when the bottom dropped out 3 weeks in, I just remember thinking, okay, Lord, this was a story of miracles to happen. It's going to be a story of miracles to survive. So if this thing survives, it's going to be only due to you, and you get all the credit for it. And so
either that or be the quickest, exit of a dream come true.
Yeah, the quickest end to a dream. So the Lord did provide. We are here 5 years later. We did get to be quite a unique entity in the midst of 2020 when everybody's doors were closing. Ours always remained open, and we were faced with a lot of things in that time because there was pressure in Virginia to close your doors if you were a hospitality zone, and we just refused. We would never close our doors to anybody, and so we found ourselves at so many crossroads in that journey, but God in his kindness placed us here with an open door when people were hurting and the rug had been pulled out from so many, and they were questioning a lot. I think 2020 allowed a lot of people to go through such shock that they were willing to question what they had considered normal for so long. And so God used that time in our story to build a foundation of hope and faith that this was his will for us to be here, and that we would be able to, that the God who provided in the most terrible of circumstances would be the God who would continue to provide as the years continued.
Do you have any particular story that you'd like to tell about something that happened during that time? I mean, you stayed open. Did you face backlash for staying open? Did people try to shut your doors? Did they, I don't know, what happened? Thanks for tuning into the Sam Sorbo Show. You know, we are in a battle for our very nation, a nation that was founded on Christian principles and on the Bible. The 10 Commandments is the basis for our rule of law. But these days, when you go talk to people on the street, you'll find that most of them don't even know what rule of law means. And that's why I'm so proud to have Herzog Foundation as a sponsor of my show. I also love what they do because they seek for the benefit of Christian education throughout the nation. So Herzog Foundation is a wonderful partner for us here at the Sam Sorbo Show. Thanks for watching. Do you have any particular story that you'd like to tell about something that happened during that time? I mean, you stayed open. Did you face backlash for staying open? Did people try to shut your doors? Did they, I don't know, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really face a ton of backlash. And I mean, obviously we stayed open, but nobody was really coming. So the day we closed on Mayhurst, the next day we had our first guest. And now, mind you, we weren't experienced. I mean, we'd always opened our homes, but we didn't do it for a living. This wasn't a profession.
Right.
And and then 3 days later, we had our first full house. And then a week later, everything shut down. And so there were some stories. I know that there were.
So I'd say some of the stories. There's. I guess where to begin is really the question. I had into COVID, so many people were going through isolation that I had a family come, and it was the first time they had ever seen anyone in 3 months. They showed up at our door, and the husband started weeping on our front porch. And I realized at that moment we were in a wild point of history. Mm-hmm. We were kind of a humanitarian study in some ways, because we got to see that we had people coming from all different states, and it depended on if you were in California or New York or Florida, how you behaved with COVID. It was very dependent on the states you came from. So we got to actually witness firsthand what it looked like, here, having people from all different states together in the midst of the COVID crazy.
Are you operating like a bed and breakfast?
Yes. So we have a bed and breakfast. We have a retreat center, and we also have a ministry for pastors and their families.
So at the time back then, you were taking guests. Those guests would then intermingle at breakfast, correct?
Mhm.
Well, some would, some wouldn't. Some, some preferred to stay in their room,
Yeah.
right? And so we wanted to respect that. And so we would bring, they wanted as little as possible. And then some, wanted as much as possible. So it kind of, with being a smaller kind of a bed and breakfast, it really gives the, one of the neat things about Mayhurst is it sits on 37 acres, and the house is so large that a guest can either be engaged with other guests or can totally be on their own and do their own thing.
Right. This is an incredible upbringing for small children. And you moved there with all your kids.
Yeah.
Have you had, how many kids? Have you had kids since then?
No, so we have 4 kids. We brought them, our littlest was 3. And so, yes, so they dove into the adventure with us day one.
Yeah.
And they were already being homeschooled, I imagine?
Yes, yes, we've homeschooled them from the beginning.
So they're learning a trade in a sense. They're learning business. Well, I'm sure they're helping out with
chores
and things.
Right. Very much. And renovations.
Yes. Yeah. They have learned a lot of life skills.
Sure. What compelled you? I mean, you were always intentional with the way that your household would run, but what made you think, and we're not going to put the kids in an institution?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things for Jason and I from the very beginning is that we have tried to start at the grave and work our way backwards. And we would say, what are the things that we would regret not having done in our lifetime? And let's make sure we do that. And one of them was to be really intentional with how we parented and raised our kids. And homeschooling was an aspect of that. And so no matter how busy our life has become, and no matter that we're running businesses and doing all these things, part of it was that we wanted to merge business, family, homeschool, all of the things into this incredible special place for our family, for our kids to grow up. We didn't want to wait for our kids to get older for us to go and do this adventure. We really wanted to do it together. We thought it would be a huge learning experience for them. And it has been. They are all entrepreneurs. They all are a part of Mayhurst, and our guest, meeting our kids is one of our guests' favorite things. And so there are many times that our kids are taking them out to do blacksmithing or woodworking or leatherworking. And it's been really special. We have goats, and we'll do we'll have baby goats in the spring. And so a lot of times our guests are out there with us in the barn and delivering babies, and our kids are all out there. So our kids have learned hospitality that is really life-giving, and that the home is so much more than a place to consume, but to really produce and to give away.
Yeah, you've mentioned a couple of times that the idea that homes have become consumption driven or consumption led, and that you didn't want that. And so you chose to homeschool your kids. So I have to ask, and I know it might be difficult to pinpoint, but can you give me just a glimpse of what your homeschooling looks like? Whatever your theory behind what school should look like in the home.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because for us, it wasn't. For us, when we looked at the school systems, they weren't driven by character development. And so if you look at American culture years ago,
wow, that's some really strong hyperbole. They're just not driven by character development. Okay, sorry, I just had to pause on that for just a minute. That was like the best one-liner in a while. Yeah, so
I grew up in a family of 9, and we were all public school. So I know very well the public school system. And I have lots of friends who were teachers in public schools. And so, and really, this is not just the school systems, but it's a lot of times it's the parents' mentality. We elevate making kids happy above character development. And so we'll put everything into making them happy and not actually focusing on their character. You know, years ago, early America, I mean, there wasn't a lot of happiness books written because we understood that happiness was a byproduct of pursuing something greater than itself. And so, you know, when you look at the scriptures, it says, happy is the man who seeks wisdom. Happy is the man who avoids wickedness. So happiness is sought after directly, which is the big mistake that we make when raising children, because happiness is a byproduct of pursuing something else. And so for us, when we think about homeschooling, it was, how can we shape their character? Because again, as you know, as an HR manager in the corporate world, I saw a lot of people come through with, you know, fancy resumes and big schools and big achievements. But man, if their character was bad or they were proud, you know, a lot of times their achievement as far as schooling could get them the job, but their character couldn't keep the job. And you got a big problem and a big disconnect there. And so when we're thinking about raising our kids, we're like, how can we be the influence in helping to develop their character? Because for us, we wanted to create lifelong learners. We wanted to create kids who wouldn't just learn while they were in school, but we wanted kids who loved to learn. Because if you do that, I mean, most stuff we learned after school.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Well, look, I've said it many times. School teaches us to hate learning.
Yeah.
Hate learning. It's onerous. It's annoying. It's never what I'm interested in. It's always what someone else wants me to, you know, look at.
100%. And it's in a box. You know, it's in this, like for us, you know, when people think about homeschooling, it's far more than us schooling them at home. It's schooling them in the values of the home, the character of the home, the makeup of the home. And so for us, schooling takes place in the workshop. It takes place in factories that we tour. It takes place in historical places. It takes place, you know, just in the ebbs and flows of life, to where they see a direct correlation between what I'm learning and what's necessary.
Yeah.
And it's also why we've chosen to engage our kids with all the stuff that we're doing.
Yeah. I often point out that school is not education. And so I call it home education instead of homeschooling, because it's absolutely not school at home. Right. And you're just sort of echoing all of those sentiments. I also encourage parents to think of, I say, start with the destination in mind. You phrase it with the grave. I'm not so morbid. Kidding. But the destination meaning, what do you want to see your child be?
Yeah.
What kind of person do you want that child to be? And it better not be a straight A person, right? Like that's not the goal. The goal isn't the corner office in, you know, for Smith Barney or whatever. The goal is character. The goal is a wonderful human being that I want to be in relationship for the rest of my life, and you know, that kind of thing. And when you start there, I think you look at the school and you go, well, that's not utilitarian. That's not going to help me get there. In fact, that's going to set up all kinds of roadblocks for me to get there.
Yeah.
Very true.
Right?
Exactly.
Well, and it creates this sense of softness where the kids, you know, you keep them from any kind of failure. You know, you keep them from any sense of having responsibility. And the problem is that you don't give them this sense of responsibility.
No, in fact, it infantilizes them.
Right. Exactly.
Absolutely. Because everything is pre-solved. Everything is pre-digested for them. And then they're asked to regurgitate it.
Right.
But it's already pre-digested. And that's why, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of colleges are seeking out homeschoolers now. Are you looking for quality homeschooling resources? Apologia offers top-notch curriculum for all ages. It's designed to inspire a love of learning and a strong foundation in faith. Head over to apologia.com and use code SORBO10 to get 10% off your next purchase. Equip your children with the best education tools and save today at Apologia, the trusted choice for homeschooling families. I don't know if you know this, but a lot of colleges are seeking out homeschoolers now, because homeschoolers tend to be outside the box thinkers, because the parents aren't going to solve everything for the kids. They're too lazy. They don't have the time. They don't want to. They recognize that the kids should solve it themselves. And clearly that's what you're doing. I'm sure if your son is working in the wood shop and he doesn't know how to fix something, he goes on YouTube and he finds a video to show him how to fix it or whatever, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was one of the things, I mean, from the very beginning, I told Casey with our kids is I said, I want to put our kids in situations in front of problems so that they have to solve them from an early age, because in solving the problem, you gain confidence, but you also gain competence because you fail. You don't always succeed. And so at one point you introduce your kids to failure as soon as possible so that it doesn't become a foe, but a friend, because you can learn from it and grow, and they're not shy away from it. They're not they're not afraid of failure. They can embrace it. And so seeing our kids fail and then get right back on it is one of, as a parent, that's your greatest joy.
Well, and of course our schools teach us that failure is bad, which is a lie, right?
Right.
I had a friend whose dad would ask her every day, "How did you fail today?" Because and then let's celebrate that, because when you fail, it means you tried something new. Kudos.
That's right.
And next time you'll get it, right?
Right.
And you mentioned this yourself, that you guys took on this enormous project and you made a bunch of mistakes, but that's how you learn. And you make a mistake, you fix it, you move on,
Yeah. And that's one of the things that, with being here at the house and training the kids is they see us try things and fail and get back at it. Like I said before, when we first started out, I didn't know how to do these things. And it's funny because a lot of people will see us and they'll just assume that I had this amazing upbringing where I was taught and trained how to do all this stuff. And it's not. It's through making tons of mistakes. Right. And the kids see that and it makes them less afraid.
I have to ask your folks, like, how did they figure into this? Like, hey, mom and dad, we're buying a historic mansion that we can't afford, and we're going to invite everybody in the world to come and visit us. Like, what did they say? And oh, by the way, and we're homeschooling the like. That's usually a pretty solid point of contention for families. Yeah. What was it like for you guys?
We thankfully have very supportive parents who love the dream and have made it their own. And so they completely.
So you can't get rid of them now? They've moved in?
Yeah. So, yes. Our guests often meet my mom, and so they love my mom. She is the extra surprise that they'll find at Mayhurst, and they'll end up in deep conversations, and she loves it. And so, both of our parents love the Lord and are very thankful that we're doing it. They have known about us ever since we got married, that we were crazy, and that we've always say, you guys burn the candle at both ends. And Jason's always said, well, I'm not dying with a candle. I'm going to burn that sucker in the middle too. And so they don't think we're crazy for doing something so big. It's kind of normal for us.
Yeah.
Now you've developed something called Artisans Hub. So tell me about that.
One of the reasons that drove us to do the Artisan Kids Hub is I was talking with a guy one time and he said, one of the dangers with having your kids part of what you're doing is that it always feels like it's yours. And so the best way you can help that is to give them something that's theirs. And so we've tried to do that with all of our kids is to kind of push them into a realm that they can take ownership over, whether it's teaching or business or whatever. So that was one of the big thriving motivations to do this Artisan Kids Hub.
Yeah. So our kids are very much a part of it. It's not just something that Jason and I do together. The Artisan Kids Hub is a space where our kids are actually teaching others. And so basically at the heart of everything that Jason and I do, we are seeking to meet a deep cultural need and a human longing, and that we're trying to answer with the things that we create. So whether that's hospitality or helping marriages flourish or creating Artisan Kids Hub, we really are creating the Artisan Kids Hub so that we can meet a deep cultural need. And so the Artisan Kids Hub and the Teapot Society are two sides of the same coin. They were both born out of a desire to create a community built around instilling character. So instilling character through being mentored through history, that's often lost in this digital age and also in our culture that doesn't appreciate history. We're living in a generation right now where children are more connected to their screens than to their American heritage, than to the ability to use their own hands. The screens that our children are addicted to in this culture it is one of the greatest, I don't know what the word would be. It's one of the greatest detriments to this generation that's raising up, because it's stealing the imaginations. Imagination is outsourced. Attention is fractured. Confidence in kids is crumbling. Depression is at an all-time high. And the reason why depression is at an all-time high and why confidence is crumbling is not because there's a mental health crisis, truly. It's because we have shifted in what our kids are consuming, and we have shifted as a culture and what is normal and what their upbringing is feeding them. And so deep inside every child, inside every adult, is this God-given longing to build, to create, to contribute to the world that they're made for. And when you suppress those things, you get depressed, you are frustrated. And we found that over the years, as people watched our kids do renovations with us and then dive into artisan skills, because our kids started artisan skills when they were little, we started getting many people over the years asking us questions of how do we do it? How do we teach others to do it? How do we get kids who can be capable with their hands and be confident and competent? And so this was an ache that we just continually saw in parents. And so we created the Artisan Kids Hub as a solution to that ache, as a way to meet that ache for others.
That is absolutely beautiful. And I will simply add to that we are in a grand experiment where we are now raising children on phones instead of with play.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no telling how that's going to end up, because they have studies now about the value of physical play in the developing brain. And we're squashing that in deference to the phone. I mean, I just so agree with you. But you didn't actually tell me, or tell us, I should say, what Artisan Kids Hub is. Why don't you just say, what it is? Stay ahead of the storm with IQ Weather, a premium all-video homeschool course that makes learning science exciting and engaging. This vivid, entertaining program incorporates physics, chemistry, geography, geology, astronomy, and oceanography, giving your kids a well-rounded education in the fascinating world of weather. Designed to captivate young minds, IQ Weather makes complex concepts easy to understand and fun to explore. Visit iqweather.com and use code SAM to get 15% off your order. Give your kids a science education they'll love and stay prepared for anything. Start your IQ Weather journey today.
The Artisan Kids Hub is online and in person. So online classes and materials, and also Zoom mentorships and in-person retreats. And so we have both. So in the Artisan Kids Hub, the kids are teaching leatherworking, blacksmithing, woodworking. Holly has created a Teapot Society where she is teaching others baking through history. I can dive all into the Teapot Society, but it's again an online mentorship, diving back in history, being mentored by our founding mothers.
Right. It's very cool. Baking bread from scratch, things like that, and the woodworking and the tool usage is is just great, and it's exciting. My daughter started tutoring Latin, and that was so freeing for her because she realized everything's in the book. You don't actually need a teacher.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, because she was homeschooled all the way. I'm not sure why that didn't like sink in until, right? But there's an enormous shift that happens when the child becomes a teacher,
Right.
and realizes that you don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
You don't have to know everything. And there's the book, like and you're competent enough to just go and figure it out before you speak it out loud or whatever. And you've offered your kids a way of learning that early, which is just a lovely thing. So I don't want to take too much of your time. You guys are obviously on a mission, and I'd love to give you the opportunity to express what that is and what your hope is for people who tune in. You're very active on social media. It's easy to find you guys. And follow what you're doing and participate even. What is the mission? What is your hope?
I would say our mission is to live lives of reckless abandonment for the Lord. And that looks like in every facet of our being, whether it's in how we open our door to the world, in how we seek to have a flourishing marriage and inspire others to have one. It's whether it's in how we parent and homeschool, whether it's how we show up on Instagram. We want to live lives of reckless abandonment to the Lord in
every
aspect of our being. We want to use our lives and our gifts fully for His glory and for the good of others.
Well, and and that's sometimes the caveat when you have homeschool families or homesteaders. A lot of times they recluse from culture in order to protect from the negative influences, which I get. For us, we wanted to engage culture. So Casey and I are kind of both bent towards swimming against the current. And so we've really tried to swim against the current and with our kids in full view. So we're very involved in politics as well. Our kids are heavily engaged and knowledgeable in the political landscape of what is facing us right now. And so we want to live lives for the glory of God, for the good of others, while also engaging the culture that's around us, because we are constantly inviting the world into our environment, which is very different from a lot of homeschoolers or homesteaders.
Yeah, although you did ban TV, which I think
yeah.
I'm not meaning for this to push back, but it feels like it's going to push back a little bit. A lot of families are like, it's too much. I'm too tired. I can't do it. Like, can you offer some encouragement to people who really, they don't have a homestead. They're not even trying to raise chickens. They're just sort of trying to get by. And maybe they're pulling their hair out, trying to homeschool their kids even, What encouragement do you have for them?
Yeah. So very simple. A lot of the problem is with our perspectives. And again, that goes back to the whole happiness thing. And this is where I think a lot of parents get discouraged, because they have sold into this culture idea of happiness and chasing it directly. And when you try and make your kids happy, it's going to be a frustrating, discouraging thing, because one, it's hard to do. Two, it's hard to keep. What made them happy today doesn't make them happy tomorrow. This is why you have to pursue character development. And a lot of times, just pick one thing that you can do consistent. For the last 10 years, I have read biographies to my kids at night. Every night, almost every night, I read biographies to the kids. And in those biographies, they see imperfect people who are doing great things through hard work. And that has been an anchor point for our family. So, it's easy to look at our family and think, oh, they got it all together, and nothing could be further from the truth. We have a lot going on, and we feel like bad parents. Well, I should say, I feel like a bad parent a lot of times. And you do have this kind of parent guilt because there's always something you feel like you could do better. But if you can just try to anchor in one thing and focus on giving them character and focus on being present as much as possible, and don't let yourself buy into you got to give them everything, because that can really lead to discouragement. And the last thing you need as a parent is to be discouraged.
I totally agree with all of that. So I have no further questions except how can people get in touch with you? You have family and marriage classes and all of that good stuff. Do you want to tell us? And I will also put it in the notes.
Yeah. So you can find us on Instagram at the Cashells. We share our adventure, the behind the scenes, all the artisan kids stuff. If you see kids out there blacksmithing on social media or doing dangerous things, it's probably our kids doing something crazy.
You know what? Sorry, because you just said something really profound. You allow your children to do dangerous things. And that's an important thing. We don't allow our children, we wrap our children in bubble wrap in our culture today. And it is training them to be fearful in a sense. You have to, you put some guardrails on, but you allow your children to do dangerous things.
Yes.
I love that you're encouraging that in people.
Well, what was the first letter in the old McGuffey reader? The first letter was A, and it stood for axe. And the reason is because the axe was the key component of home life. Is what it said. And so we've always put our kids.
Little tiny kids were using axes when they were little. And so yes, I think it is huge for parents to not hover and to be able to step back and trust your kids to be able to use tools.
They're far more capable. And we can speak firsthand, because it makes us nervous too that they might get hurt. I mean, it's not like we want them to get hurt, but the alternative is worse. But
do you think as a culture because I've been saying this for a little while, we don't trust children anymore. We don't trust them to want to learn. We don't trust them to be clever. We don't trust them to do things.
That's true.
Well, a lot of times we don't trust ourselves either. So, when I engage people who are trying to do a home project, their biggest hindrance is I've never done it before.
I can't do it. I've never done it.
Yeah, you got to embrace it. Okay, you've never done it before. Then when you do this, you would have done it. So let's just get started.
True. Very true.
All right. So people follow you on Instagram. I'm sorry, we got a little bit off track. And how can they get in?
They can follow us on Instagram at the Cashells, and then also our website is easy. It's thecashells.com. That's where our Artisan Kids Hub, our Teapot Society, our online classes, our mentorships in marriage and family.
Where they can come stay at Mayhurst Estate.
Or you can descend upon us and walk through our front door, and I'll give you a big hug, and we can have some tea together and chat about all life's problems.
I'm there. I'm coming next weekend. Jason and Casey, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Sam. We appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, so that does it for me. This is the Sam Sorbo Show. Wasn't that fabulous? Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, speak truth and speak it boldly. We'll see you next time.
The views and opinions expressed in the Sam Sorbo Show are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views and positions of the Herzog Foundation.